October 1st, 331 BC. Near Gaugamela, Mesopotamia. Picture this, you're standing on an open plain. Nowhere to hide. Nowhere to run. Across the dust, 250,000 Persian soldiers deploy for battle. The largest army the ancient world has ever seen. To the Persians, the outcome was already decided. This wasn't an army assembled to fight. It was built to deliver the final blow. At their center stands Darius the Third, the man every army in Asia was taught never to challenge. The kind of power that doesn't expect resistance, only submission. Facing him, 47,000 Macedonians, led by a 25-year-old king who has never lost a battle and has never been closer to death. Alexander the Great. The Persians outnumber him 5-1. They have cavalry on both wings, chariots at the front, war elephants. By every rule of ancient warfare, this should be over before it begins. Now watch what happens. By sunset, the Persian Empire will collapse. The King of Kings will abandon his men and run for his life. Alexander will become king of Asia. How did an army that should have been erased end an empire before sunset? By the end of this video, you'll understand how the impossible happened and why it changed history forever. To understand why Gaugamela mattered, you need to understand one thing first. Alexander fought every war as if there would be no second chance. In 334 BC, he crossed into Asia with just 35,000 men. Not to negotiate, not to test the waters, but to punish Persia for invading Greece and prove that Macedonia ruled the battlefield. At the Granicus River, he didn't hesitate. He led a cavalry charge straight into Persian forces, nearly dying when an axe split his helmet. He survived, and Persia broke. A year later, Issus. This time, Darius himself came to stop him. The battlefield was narrow. Persian numbers meant nothing. Alexander saw Darius, charged directly at him, and the King of Kings ran. He left behind his family, his treasury, his army. Alexander didn't just win battles, he shattered authority. After Issus, the world began to tilt. Tyre resisted. Alexander erased it after 7 brutal months. Egypt didn't resist at all. They crowned him pharaoh. Every victory followed the same pattern. Decisive, personal, final. But one man was still watching. Darius was still alive, still ruling the heart of the empire. And this time he was learning. By 331 BC, there was nowhere left to run. This time Darius chose the battlefield. Wide, flat, endless. A place where cavalry could surround, where numbers could finally matter. Gaugamela. Darius believed Alexander's luck had run out, that one reckless charge wouldn't save him again. Alexander believed something else, that wars were decided by seeing the king and breaking him. But this time, doing that meant risking everything. And at Gaugamela, he was ready to do exactly that. September 30th, the night before the battle. Darius believed everything was finally in his favor. His plan was simple. The chariots would tear open the Macedonian line, the cavalry would crush the flanks, and when Alexander was exposed, the empire would finish him. In the Macedonian camp, some officers urged a night attack. Strike first. Avoid the trap. Alexander refused. I will not steal victory like a thief. He wanted Darius to see him, to face him, to lose in daylight. That night, Alexander walked the field alone. He studied the ground Darius trusted, and he saw exactly where the empire would break. October 1st, dawn. Look across the Persian line. This isn't an army. It's an empire daring anyone to stand against it. 250,000 men, drawn from every corner of the known world. Cavalry from Bactria and Scythia, riding since childhood. Infantry from Babylon, Media, Syria, India, different languages, different cultures, all forced into one command. At the front waited 200 scythe chariots, blades fixed to their wheels, designed to tear. Infantry apart. Behind them stood war elephants from India, living weapons meant to shatter formations before the battle had even begun. At the center sat Darius the Third, King of Kings, watching the plain he had chosen himself. On the Persian left stood Bessus, commanding the elite Bactrian and Scythian cavalry. Fast, aggressive, positioned to crush any threat to the flank. On the right waited Mazias, leading cavalry from Syria and Mesopotamia, anchoring the other wing. This is what imperial power looks like. An army built to end wars in a single day. Now look at the other side. 47,000 Macedonians and Greeks. No dips, no reserves. No margin for error. At the center stands the phalanx. 31,000 heavy infantry locked shoulder to shoulder, holding 18-foot sarissas, forming a moving wall of bronze. Behind them, 9,000 light troops, peltasts, archers, and elite shock infantry. Fast, flexible, trained to screen the line, break chariots, and strike where the phalanx cannot turn. And on the wings, 7,000 cavalry. On the right, Alexander himself, leading the bulk of the cavalry, the companion cavalry at its core, his personal strike force, positioned for the decisive blow. On the left, Parmenion, commanding the entire defensive flank, the remaining Thessalian and allied Greek cavalry and the left section of the phalanx, tasked with holding the line while Alexander prepared to pull the battlefield apart. Alexander rode along the line. He stopped in front of his army and said, "Men of Macedon, look at them. They fight for gold. They fight because they are commanded. You fight because this ground is yours to stand on. Behind us is Greece, and there is no road home that does not go through this field. Ahead of us stands a king who believes numbers decide fate. Today, show him what discipline decides. Hold the line. Watch me. Where I ride, follow. If I fall, do not stop. Better to die here than live knowing we let fear decide for us." For a heartbeat, silence. Then the line erupted. Shields slammed. Spears struck bronze. Not celebration, commitment. A roar rolled across the Macedonian army. The Persian army was so vast its wings stretched far beyond the Macedonian line. Encirclement wasn't a possibility. It was the plan, which meant Alexander had only one option: move first. So he did. Instead of advancing straight ahead, Alexander ordered his entire line to drift slowly to the right, away from the leveled killing ground Darius had prepared. It looked like a mistake, the kind that gets an army surrounded and erased. But Bessus, commanding the Persian left, understood the danger immediately. Alexander wasn't attacking the center. He was trying to slip past it. To prevent that, Bessus extended his cavalry farther and farther outward, keeping pace with Alexander's movement. Thousands of Bactrian and Scythian horsemen stretched the Persian line, pulling units away from the one place they could not afford to weaken: the king. The center began to thin. Still drifting right, Alexander forced Bessus into a decision. Unwilling to fight on broken ground, Bessus made his choice. He attacked. Persian cavalry surged forward, charging the Macedonian right. The bait was taken. The Persian left was now fully engaged. Seeing this, Darius believed the time had come. 200 scythe chariots surged forward, and with them, the war elephants began to charge, their weight shaking the earth. The ground thundered, but the phalanx did not panic. It opened lanes. Chariots screamed through empty corridors while projectiles cut down the drivers, and the machines tore past without finding a target. The elephants followed and met the same fate. Harassed by skirmishers, blinded by spears, they staggered sideways into the gaps where phalanx ranks closed and finished them cleanly. Darius' gamble collapsed in seconds. Meanwhile, on the opposite flank, Mazias hurled his cavalry at Parmenion, who fought desperately to hold the line. Seeing the chaos unfold, Darius ordered a massive charge of Persian infantry, tens of thousands pushing forward at once, a rolling wall of shields and spears driving straight into the center. The Persian army was fully committed. Every reserve, every option, and that decision would cost Darius everything. With Bessus locked in combat and infantry pulled from the center, a weakness appeared. A thin, frayed section of the Persian left center, where order had broken, where the king now stood exposed. Alexander saw it instantly. Gathering a spearhead of companion cavalry, he wheeled left. Then he charged. Not at the army, at the king. The wedge smashed into the Persian center. Suddenly, the fighting was no longer distant. It was in front of Darius. Alexander pushed closer, cutting through guards, advancing step by step. Darius, growing increasingly uneasy, prepared to defend himself. Then he broke. For the second time, the King of Kings turned his chariot and ran. And the moment Darius fled, the Persian center began to collapse. Orders stopped. Units disengaged. What had been an empire became a crowd. Bessus pulled back. The rest dissolved. Alexander saw the opening and gave chase. Then the message arrived. Parmenion was in trouble. On the left flank, Mazias, unaware that Darius had fled, was close to breaking the Macedonian line. Alexander made a decision few conquerors would have made. He turned back. He reinforced Parmenion, stabilized the flank. And only then did the battle truly end. Darius escaped, but his empire did not. Gaugamela was over. The Persian Empire had lost its center of gravity. Before this day, Persia was still a functioning superpower. The satraps commanded armies. Its cities controlled wealth, manpower, and supply routes. And Darius, however flawed, was still king. After Gaugamela, all of that unraveled. Babylon opened its gates. Susa surrendered its treasury. And Persepolis was burned to the ground. Alexander didn't conquer Persia city by city. He shattered its command structure in a single afternoon. But the war was not finished. Darius was still alive. And as long as the king lived, resistance could still form. So Alexander pushed east, not chasing territory, but legitimacy. That pursuit led him into the mountains, into narrow passes. In 330 BC, a Persian force made its final stand at a place designed to do what Gaugamela could not: stop Alexander completely. This was the Battle of the Persian Gate, where the empire's last hope lay in ambush, and where Alexander came closer to defeat than at any point in his career.